The Water Entrepreneur is brought to you by ASTERRA, a leader in remote Earth observation technologies, and Imagine H2O, building solutions with the world's best water companies. Support is also provided by Aquarius Spectrum, Simple Lab, Fluid Analytics, Civil Grid, and Orb Monitor. And now, live from beautiful downtown Encinitas, your host, Paul Gagliardo. Welcome and thanks for joining me today. This is episode 52 of the Water Entrepreneur Podcast, and I'm your host, Paul Gagliardo. And today I have as my guest Gary Eaton, Director of Product at ASTERRA, the leader in remote Earth observation applied technology. Hi, Gary. Thanks for being a water entrepreneur and appearing on the show today.
Hey, Paul, nice to talk with you, and I'm excited to be here.
I understand you've been talking all day, even though it's early in the morning. So, get a couple of cough drops or something, and hopefully we'll make it through.
Yeah, that's part of the joys of being a worldwide organization. You get to talk to people 24/7 if you want to.
If you want to, really. I know I've already had a conversation with somebody in the UK and with somebody in Australia today, so I can relate.
Yep.
So as a continuation from my 1-year anniversary milestone, I've interviewed Ellie Peretz about the ASTERRA business and James Perry about the ASTERRA offerings in the last 2 episodes, and this is a continuation of that. So I want to talk about the product and delivery side of the business.
Okay.
You held positions in planning, construction, operation, and maintenance at the San Diego County Water Authority before coming to ASTERRA. Did you find it a challenge to enter a small business focusing on remote Earth observation projects that you were probably not that familiar with?
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. I came from the public sector, and I spent 30 years there, and yes, I did work on product development within the public sector, whether it was implementing computerized maintenance management packages or other things. So there are really strong correlations. The last 2 years I was at the Water Authority, I was Chief Innovation Officer. And so as part of that role, I traveled around the country looking for new and innovative types of technologies that could be implemented across the 24 member agencies. And so it gave me a good opportunity to learn quite a bit about the startup world and to be able to assess and try and do some plannings around the implementation of new products. I think that was really helpful. Then, of course, when I retired, I spent a couple of years consulting, and as part of that process, I worked with some startups, everything from drones to devices to put on water meters and so on. So I think it gave me a good understanding of certainly the customer and what they value and need in a product. But it also gave me a good understanding of startups and some of the difficulties they face in trying to meet those needs and develop a product that works for their customers.
So was this the first startup that you were actually an employee of?
No, I worked for a while for Water Pigeon as a chief kind of product development officer for about 2 years with them. But as you know, in startups, you wear many different hats. So everything from sales to working on the floor to even coming up with engineering solutions. So I do think it was a good, it gave me a good basis for stepping in here. But honestly, hitting the ground running at ASTERRA, it has been trying to learn, like drinking from a fire hose. There are so many things going on, and this company is moving in so many different directions, and just cultural differences, startup issues, time element, working globally. All of those have really been an education for me.
I asked this question to both James and to Ellie. I want to ask you the same thing. When you joined ASTERRA, did you believe intuitively that this company and the direction was going in was going to be successful? Or did you think it was going to, kind of take a lot of work and some good luck and to kind of meet the goals that the company had in mind? I guess you wouldn't have joined the company unless you thought it was going to be successful or it was successful, but it's kind of a remote Earth observation is a fairly new technology, and the adoption of such, can be of new technologies can be problematic in different areas. So just curious as about, kind of what your initial thoughts were when you first joined and say, okay, I'm entering a satellite company. What does that really mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I met James Perry about probably 2016. So they were really just starting in the US. And I met him in more the innovation role when I was still at the Water Authority. And so I understood what they were attempting to do. I did feel that there was promise there. I didn't discuss my background. I have a military background. I was an intelligence analyst, and I had training on satellite imagery interpretation in the military. Okay. So I had a good basis, not as much with synthetic aperture radar, but with certainly with aerial and satellite imagery. So I understood how you could bring that value and how it could be used. I think my reservations, if any, when I joined ASTERRA, were about my ability to be able to help them move it along. And I you mentioned about, as we all know, the adoption curve, particularly in the public sector, is very, very long. It is a difficult challenge. But I do think that the product has merit. I do think it also has merit not only for recover and potable water, but across multiple spectrums. And that's why the Earthworks product kind of took off. And I think we've just kind of scratched the surface about how this can be used.
Very interesting. So I want to, explore the evolution of the company. Relative to how ASTERRA has developed products and, provided the data or the information, to its customers. ASTERRA began life as Utilis. The initial offering was potable water, leak detection. How, maybe you can give us a little view of that product and how the data was delivered, to the customer. Since as a remote Earth observation company, it's you're totally remote. You don't even ever need to go to the utilities office. So how do you provide the information to the customer?
Well, let's go back to, so our initial offering was around, we provided them a shape file and a KML file, and it showed a map with the points of interest or areas where what we called likely leak locations. We had these large circles, and we would put them onto the water agency's map and identify those as areas that they needed to look at as potential leaks. We also provided them an Excel spreadsheet with this likely leak location, or POI, shown. It also had the address, which is how it was the meter address that the utility provided. We provided them with a paper PDF because at that point the utilities were not using UCollect, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point later on. And so we were giving them, in many cases, we would give them a PDF sheet per leak. So in some cases, we gave them 300 sheets, and on it, it would show them where on the map where the leak was that we'd identified. It gave them the address, some Latin long, and those kinds of things. And so, and we really relied on that customer at that point to come back to us and tell us what they had found. We hadn't developed UCollect at that point, and so we were really we were dependent on that customer to provide that information back. That information from the customer was used then to develop really our first dashboard that contained all the basic information specific to that leak. So it would have the location, whether it was surface or subsurface, and as you know, the bulk of our leaks that we discover are subsurface, and whether it was on a pipeline, whether it was on an associated connection or next to a valve, that type of information. So our dashboard development occurred over time with input from our customers and around what they viewed as being the most valuable. And it really took off after the development of the UCollect app, where they could go out in the field and they could actually go to the site, implement the information, take a photo of that leak if they wanted, pinpoint it exactly with GPS. And then, of course, we added in time things like that were valuable up and down the management hierarchy, if you will. What was the water savings? What was the power savings? Greenhouse gas reduction? All of field crews progress. All of those kind of things were iterative and were added as we continued to evolve the product.
So it's interesting that, because I talked to a lot of folks and they developed their dashboard, I'll call it, the way they think it should be. And it sounds like ASTERRA took, the voice of the customer into account when developing the information delivery mechanism. I think, that probably makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of giving the customer what they want the way they want it.
Yeah, we cannot underscore the value of that voice of customer. We can create the world's greatest product, but if it doesn't address a problem and the information isn't readily available to the customer, they can't access it, can't interpret it, all of that, we will have the world's greatest product that nobody buys, and we will be out of business.
Yeah, it's everybody I talk to has the best dashboard in the world.
Yeah,
everybody's baby is the most beautiful baby in the world. I shouldn't be so sarcastic, but and for them maybe it is. It's really, but I think it's really important to make sure that it's usable and it's customer friendly, and the customer can get out of it what they need to get out of it. That's really the most important thing, especially when you're providing data as a service. So speaking of that, when ASTERRA rebranded from Utilis to ASTERRA, you also conceptually made a pivot from offering products to offering services. So how did that fundamentally change
Hmm.
what you were providing to customers, or did it just change how you were providing information to customers? What was the real upshot of that particular, I'll call it a fundamental change?
Oh, it was exactly that. Uh, the impact was huge. It was both internal and external as well. So, like the change to the SaaS model impacted everybody within our organization. We had to change the terminology that we used, contract language, how we marketed, how we sold, whether we sold in subscriptions, how we accounted for the revenue on the finance side. That impact was across the entire organization, touched everybody in some form. Externally, though, it was big because not only we had to change our perspective from the specific product delivery focus that we had to one of really this ongoing relationship with our customer and how we could add value over the entire life of that subscription for that customer. And it's not just the the field crew and their manager, but it's really through the entire management hierarchy, so that everybody got something as a result of this. So we wanted the customer, whether they're the leak detection crew, that supervisor, that manager, director, to find value in not only the product, but the customer portal, and the information that we provided. They had to be able to access that information quickly, and not have to dig too deep. We're creatures of habit. We don't want to dig too deep for something, and I think we needed to operationalize the product a little bit more. Meaning, I really had a vision and wanted the customer to go to the platform first thing in the morning and use it to make more of an informed decision on how best to deploy their leak investigation teams. Essentially, if I've got $1 to spend, where do I get the biggest bang for my buck today? And so that was critical. And I think that's the thing that we're shaping this platform to be, is to be a tool for everybody in the organization to see value, and for it to be an operational tool that gives them that greatest bang for the buck.
And since then, you've evolved into EO Discover, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So how does that platform incorporate all the things that you just talked about?
Yeah, I would say, when I think of the EO Discover platform, it's where the customer can go to view all things ASTERRA. Okay, so we got one point of entry where they can come in. So they're not trying to go to a platform off over here or go find brochures somewhere else. So the delivered data, whether it comes from our Recover product, our wastewater product, our master plan, or even Earthworks, that platform is intended to be the single location where the customer gains access to everything. And that goes down to real kind of the minutia, the account detail, who's on the account, what are the licenses and passwords, where are the white papers, where's the brochures, training videos. All of that really is to reside within that platform, so that I know when I come in the morning, I kick that on, I take a look, I can see my field data, I can see how my crews are progressing, I can get the latest and greatest on any other product we've got, I can relate to stories, and that's truly the idea behind this the platform.
I think that's really great. It's a single point of entry for the customer to access everything. Does the staff, the ASTERRA staff, use the platform as well?
Oh yeah, ASTERRA staff. So I would start at probably the lowest level would be or the most engaged level would be our customer service managers. They monitor the dashboard, ensuring that the customer, first off, do they have access to the data? How are they progressing with their field investigations? In some cases, we may see where we deliver the data and they don't do anything for a while. So we're looking at what's going on, because we don't always know if that particular utility does leak investigation primarily in the spring, summer, and in fall. Those kinds of things. So we look at that. If we see that something's not happening, we'll intervene early. Contact them, say, hey, are you having problem accessing this? Work with them to determine any kind of cause and kind of get them back on track if necessary. The CSMs also monitor the performance, particularly at critical points along the project, to ensure that the customer is satisfied. And as we approach the end of the subscription period, we notify them, and we want to make sure that they know that there's a renewal process and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how the customer service managers use it. Our product managers, including myself, we monitor the product's overall performance. So we have the ability to look at each project's their benchmarks. We can compare them against previous performance. So if we see one of a data delivery that seemed to do well, but another one that is not, we can take a look at it. We can kind of work with them on trying to figure out any kind of issues. We compare that not only with the customer, so they've had made multiple data deliveries over time, but we can compare it regionally. We can compare it globally, and we do have benchmarks across those that we look at. Within the product group, I have an analyst, and that analyst reviews the data against the norms for that product's performance, and they can identify customers as well that are maybe lagging or appear to have some difficulty. And then they report that to not only to the product team, but they also report it to the CSMs. Another group that uses our R&D production teams. They have access to the dashboard, and they investigate potential product performance issues. So if we see something's lagging, it's certainly not always on the customer side. It can be on our side as well. So they'll go back and they'll validate any failure hypothesis, like, do we have is there an issue with a particular satellite or a particular latitude, the nadir angle with the satellite, or they're looking really at the more technical aspects to see if they can spot anything. They also monitor, as you know, we use AI, machine learning, to continue to improve the performance. So they're looking for those kind of things so they can go back and make sure that our AI team is looking at those and can address maybe there's a tweak to the algorithm somewhere that they may want to make to improve the performance. And then, of course, our senior management, we monitor overall health of all of our products and customer satisfaction. We also track feature changes, the progress on feature changes. We monitor bug fixes. So if there's a bug that pops up somewhere, we monitor the time it takes for us to investigate it and get everything back on track. That is the highest priority for our customer, and certainly for us, is to make sure that we're moving forward on those. And then, of course, we, like everybody, we like to celebrate. So we're celebrating, like now we're celebrating our 100,000th leak found as of the 18th. So a couple of days ago. So we also gotta throw those milestones out there and celebrate that as well.
Great, congratulations! I was just going to mention that I saw a blurb on that this morning. So that's quite impressive. The people throw around these acronyms, AI, machine learning, SaaS. Do you view what ASTERRA does as data as a service, software as a service? How do you view your kind of position in the as a service ecosystem?
Yeah, I would say we're probably ideally we want to be data as a service, and we want to provide that to them. The data is the core from which they make everybody finds value in the product. So we're really a data as a service, but when you start looking at these acronyms, they run all over the place. Even SaaS, I like to refer to us as space as a service. So, you know, so we can kind of, you can spin this any way you want. But we go back to our mission statement, which is we are humanity's eyes. We're guiding Earth through its change by applying advanced analytical capabilities to synthetic aperture radar. But when the rubber meets the road, it really is about us being able to provide a usable data to our customers from which they can make operational decisions.
So you start off providing potable water leak detection. Now you're doing sewer line defect analysis, earthworks, other data services. Can you tell me a little bit about how those products are different and how they all fit into your dashboard and how you manage these different products and deliver them within the same platform?
Okay, yeah. Let's start with recover, because the recover is potable water, but it's also wastewater. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is we provide that data, and it's very similar in that the information is really about discovering a soil a leak underneath the ground that emanates from some source. And so we provide that to them on the dashboard. And as I said, it comes in the form of KML or shape files, and they have access to that information. But depending upon that product, its dashboard can look differently. And that's what you'll see with water and on the wastewater side. But if you were to look at, say, earthworks is very different in that that particular product can be used across many different industries. So you've got, say, the mining industry. Within that, they're interested in monitoring tailing dams and their potential for failure. And so that particular industry is going to use earthworks in a different manner. And I'll talk kind of at the end of this just a little bit about some of the new features, I'm sure. Dams and levees, another area for earthworks. So within that, we continue to in the U.S. and worldwide, we continue to build downstream of our aging dams and levees, and this presents a real risk to downstream populations. And so this combination of dams and levees aging and climate change only adds to the increased risk of potential failure. So with that, we have a product that's a little bit different that relies on we grid off that particular piece of infrastructure, and then we're able to do the soil moisture and to be able to show them within individual cells what that level of soil moisture is, and we can set alerts and alarms. So that dashboard is just a little bit different. Railroads, we work with railroads, and that's a long linear asset. So again, a map, again, a grid system, but the same type of concept where we have different soil moisture within that grid, and we can then help them, particularly with with railroads. They're really interested in monitoring for landslides, areas of high soil moisture where we may have track subsidence or fall away. It allows us to inform those inspection crews prior to an event that either leads to, certainly a landslide can take the track out, but just importantly, you can end up with a situation where drainage is not working properly, and you end up with flooding across a track, or even simply having to reduce speed in an area, which for railroads is key. Roads, same type of thing. So it really, we set up a dashboard, and that dashboard can be fine-tuned somewhat based on the application.
What are some of the new products and services that ASTERRA will be offering, either now or in the future, that you can share?
Yeah, I would say first off, there's big changes coming. And I'm really excited about them. So if my voice comes up a little bit and I start droning on, feel free to cut me off a little bit. But first, let's talk about the recover product, because this is where most of our customers are, and so this side of the house is absolutely essential, and you're going to see the first changes for them. So we're adding, we're adding 16 features or major improvements, and that's going to happen. And it really ranges from the visual display of the data to how we show POIs on the board. The dashboard's going to be arranged a little bit, giving the map a little bit more prominence, kind of going to that concept I talked about, where I want you to come in and the first thing in the morning is look at that map and plan your day. So we're going to be doing that. The ability to filter, allowing them to look into the past and be able to filter out based on dates or times, or even the type of the results of the field investigation. So that's going to be big for Recover. We're doing the same thing on the wastewater side. One of the key things for wastewater is a U-Collect form that the field crews can use and out in the field. And so we're doing right now quite a bit of work trying to get that voice of customer so we can make those changes. But we've got 14 improvements planned for the wastewater side of the house. And then, of course, Earthworks application is huge for us. I have 16 features right now, and that does not even include some of the features that are the same in Recover and wastewater, that are just going to move over to Earthworks. And so we'll be able to, I think the key there with that one too is we're going to implement alerts and alarms. And this is the first time we've been able to do that. And I think that is such a game changer for our customers, because we heard from them that they were struggling with how to make Earthworks operational. You gave us this data, but look at this massive amount of data, and we've got to try and interpret that. Well, what we found from them was in discussions, particularly like with Network Rail in the UK, spent a few days in the field walking with them and talking, and they kind of shared, we need to be able to make this more operational. And that's where the alerts and alarms came from. And the ability for us to be able to see that and to be able to tell them in advance, look at this, we've got a slope here of this grade. We've got a vibrating train that runs next to it. We've got soil moisture of this. We're telling you at this point, you're at alert, you need to look at this. An alarm, you need to get out in the field and address this. And so, once we had that discussion, we kind of understood. It's really been a game changer. The feedback we're getting from the customers is, now I understand how I can take this from the theoretical, if you will, to that operational. And I think that's absolutely key for us.
Yeah, the knowledge is great, but you got to know what to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I understand now, and this is why that voice of customer is so critical. And sometimes the customer, struggles to articulate that. And it's not that they don't know it. They may not be able to put it in the words that you're looking for. And so I think it's really important then that particularly on the product side, that we spend that time talking with them, and we learn to listen to them, to define the pain point the customer needs to have address, and then to be able to take that pain point and then develop a product that not only addresses that pain point, but helps those champions within that particular organization, be able to sell it within the organization. Because it's rare when you come into an organization, you got one person who's going to make that decision. It's normally a multitude of people that make that decision. And so we've got to figure out who the champions are. We've got to figure out what the barriers to adoption are. Is it a technological issue? Is it a training issue? Is it just that they don't understand how a satellite 390 miles up in the sky can actually identify something on the ground? So you got to remove those barriers to adoption. Once we do that, then I think that we will be successful, and we've proven that on the water. We're seeing some great growth on the wastewater side, particularly this year, and I am so excited about Earthworks. I just, well, you can hear, I get all googly about it. So anyway.
So you have an interesting career arc, from military to large public entity, the Water Authority, quote unquote, retiring and becoming a consultant, and now working for a startup. What do you have any favorite role that you were involved in, or is it because I guess I've had been around long enough to have that same kind of arc of different I call them careers. And there were some things I liked about certain places I worked, and some things I didn't like. And as you get older, you change your viewpoint of things. But
Sure.
how do you think about the various jobs you've had over the years?
Well, I don't miss the 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock phone calls in the morning about broken pipes. So I can say that. And I have been really fortunate. I've had a career arc similar to yours that has been, when you work within an industry for 30 years, that's an amazing thing to begin with. And we've both seen really some major changes in the industry on the water side in particular. So I really have to say I was very blessed in that. But for me, I guess I've really never been all that caught up around the titles. And for me, the fun for me is finding a problem and then coming up with a solution. We had I guess a segue. We had pre-stressed pipe at the San Diego County Water Authority, and that pipe was failing, and we couldn't build our way out of it. It's a known design issue with pre-stressed pipe, and it fails catastrophically, and we had major failures. And so for me, that was a pain point. Having to go to the board, having to deal with that was a major pain point. And that opened my mind to looking for innovative ways to find a solution. And we were fortunate that we found a company in Canada by the name of Pure. They're no longer, I don't think they're called Pure anymore. I think they were bought and they're now under Xylem. But we had a discussion with them, and they said, how about using acoustic fiber inside your pipes to listen for? And we met with them, we talked about it. It sounded like a strange idea at the start, but over about a year of discussions and planning and so on and so forth, we were able to implement it, and we became the first water utility in the world to implement and monitor our pipelines 24/7. We were it was instrumental. I mean, I didn't get a broken pipeline call for 14 more years, right? So, and I think going through that innovation of taking something that was not designed for that, it was designed for bridge strikes underneath major bridges, and so we took that. We initially tried to restrain it in the pipe. We found that didn't work. It had to free float. We had to do so. There were different things that had to be done, and we learned. As we kind of went along with that company. And the bliss for the next 14 years for me, it allowed us to have that some level of comfort that we were on that progressive side. But again, if we had not had that pain point, I don't know that I was been as receptive to it. And it would have been something that would have certainly been in the back. But when you pay millions of dollars on a pipeline failure, as we had, you realize then that is a pain point and you need to address it. And so to me, having a problem, I just love solving them and trying to come up with something. And I've worked in so many different areas, on policy and board issues to implementation of fluoride in systems to implementation of software packages, and whether it be SCADA or CMMS packages or GPS in vehicles. And really, it's about being able to define the problem, clearly define the problem, and coming up with alternatives and sorting and coming up with and brainstorming, and then find champions and moving it through. To me, that's the fun. And I love that. And I really don't doesn't matter to me what you call me. Just call me to help work on the problem. That's what I like.
Well, lucky for you, there's no shortage of problems to be solved. So for as long as you want to solve problems, I'm sure there'll be something there for you to solve. But this was great conversation. I really do appreciate it. And congratulations on everything ASTERRA is doing, and I wish you all the best.
Paul, I thank you very much. It was a lot of fun, and anything I can do, I listen to your podcast and I enjoy it very much. So I thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, make sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and rate us 5 stars. Please visit thewaterentrepreneur.org for additional content or to apply to become a future guest. For information on becoming a sponsor, please contact us at thewaterentrepreneur@gmail.com. We hope you tune in again next week.